Hey, what's going on, everybody? Christmas in July extravaganza continues. Today, we have with us a very special guest. We have David, straight from Learn Christmas Lighting. David, how's it going?
It's going good, man. It is going good today.
Fantastic. So, for folks that don't know, we're gonna interview David here. David is a leader in the Christmas light industry for Pixel Lights. Let's do a quick roll call. Everybody know who all in here. We got Steve from the Wonderland in here. We got Adam saying, looking forward to this and seeing this. Nice. We got BB. These videos are what I need to help remind me to start ahead of autumn. Very nice. It's 100% true.
Yeah.
This was a great interview last year. Appreciate that, Crepe.
Thanks.
Scott Dries, who is a farmer out in Western Kansas, says hello. And we got Rob. Hello, all. So, David, folks who don't know you because they have their head in the hole, who are you and what do you do?
Well,
sorry.
No worries. I'm David from Learn Christmas Lighting. And what we do is we basically help people to make their light shows happen. One of the biggest things people run into in this hobby is confusion, trying to get started. Maybe you're not technical and you need somebody alongside to help you. And so that's the main thing we do. The other thing we do is we're one of the leaders in moving headlights, which are becoming more than trendy in the Christmas lighting hobby as well.
So for someone who is just starting out, and I wanted to make this one of the first questions to you because I'm sure it's on the tip of everybody's tongue, it's on everybody's mind. Someone who's just starting out, what's the best piece of advice that you can give them?
Start early.
Start early,
yeah. Because the biggest thing, you know this, is that somebody gets into it and you might be like, oh, right, I'm used to putting, 1,000 just regular plug-in lights on my house, right? Just plugging them in. I put up 1,000 lights. I think about it the weekend before. I run out to the hardware store and I get some extra lights. And then the next weekend I put them all up and then I'm done, right? Doing an animated light show is not like that, especially the build out process, kind of building what we call your props, your different items in your show. That has, especially if you're doing a pixel type show, that has a lot of front end work. Year to year, when you set the same stuff back up again, it's actually often faster than conventional lights to actually physically put them up. But the initial setup, the initial build of those props takes some time. And there's things you got to learn. And that's why that's the biggest mistake I see people make, is because people get into this and it's July, August, September. They go, oh, we're going to do this great animated light show this year, right? And that's a little bit too late. You could do something small, but there's a learning curve. Then there's time building your props, and especially your first year, you just want to give yourself extra time for the unknown, to have, things pop up on your schedule that you didn't see, and then you don't work on your light show, etc.
So there's a lot to learn. There's a huge learning curve with pixels. With just a computerized animated Christmas light show. But one thing you have done that I think is really an industry leader is you have created a Learn Christmas Lighting Academy, which I am a member of. And it is in my opinion, if I'm going to give the user synopsis of it, it
Awesome.
is a start to finish. Everything you want to know is in the academy, and what I love is it's broken up to 5 minutes or 7 minutes. It's not a 3 hour long thing. It's broken up kind of like Hooked on Phonics or Babbel does for learning foreign languages. So, what is the mission of the Learn Christmas Lighting Academy, and can you explain about it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you just did, but we'll take it a little bit deeper. Because I too, like, I'm not a good learner. Like, I didn't do well in school, and so it's great to hear that, that it works that way. And it's like, so basically the Academy is, like Charlie said, it's an A to Z guide to everything, to building and growing and maintaining that Christmas light show, with a focus on animated Christmas light shows. And yeah, what we do is exactly what Charlie said. The difference between the Academy and like trying a bunch of YouTube videos is it's in order, it's organized, it's updated every year. We're going through it. I typically watch it twice a year, just to see, okay, did I find a piece of out-of-date information? Let's go update that video. And so it's one consistent method, which is really key. You might not realize getting into this, but you'll find out quickly that there is more than one way to put an animated Christmas light show together. There are many ways and many opinions on how to do it. And so if you go like YouTube hopping and you catch one from me and then you catch one from somebody else, you catch one from somebody else and somebody else, all of a sudden you're just confused because you can't take like four people's different teaching on different segments of the light show and just stick them together and expect as a new person, thanks Eddie, you can't expect as a new person to like for it to make sense because this is your first time doing it. Like somebody like me can go watch four different videos from different people on different segments and be like, oh, well, this guy's talking about this guy's talking about that. And I can put them all together. But that's because I've done it a bunch of times. If this is your first time doing it, you need it step by step from one consistent, teacher, because that's how it's going to make sense for your first time putting together a show.
So someone who wants to be a member, and by the way, I forgot to mention at the end of today's video, we'll be giving away a free membership to Learn Christmas Lighting Academy. So everybody, please put in #summer into the comments. We'll be doing a random picker later in the interview. That'll be one of the last things we do. But #summer, put that into the comments, and we'll do give that away later today. Thank you, David, for sponsoring the show and giving that away in today's video.
Awesome. And we didn't talk about this, but let's just make it a full year's subscription.
What?
So it's usually like you can join quarterly and pay every quarter or every year. Well, let's just give away a year. So anywho, back to you.
That is awesome. That is all. So last year, Braden Stewart won that, and it was a 3 months thing. So this year, it's a full year membership, guys. Trust me. You're gonna like it. I'm gonna stop being giddy. I'm gonna ask the questions they need to ask. Otherwise, I'm gonna go off on tangents. So when someone joins the academy, what does that member now have access to? In addition to videos, what do they also have access to?
Yeah, exactly. That's the good stuff. So obviously, like we said, there's all of the different courses that have the videos, right? So there's a course, not to gloss over it, but there's a course called How to Create Your First Christmas Light Display. That's usually where we send you first because that's, it's how to create your first Christmas light display, right? But then there's deep dives from there into different segments, different sections, different things and parts of the hobby that you might get interested in going deeper with your display after you do that initial stuff, right? After you kind of get a year under your belt, get going with it. You're ready to expand. You want to learn more about controllers or more about sequencing and X lights or more about moving heads. There's different segments on that, which you can dive deeper separate from that first course. But then there is our community forums. Which Charlie's seen, lots of people have seen, where myself and other professionals and hobbyists are in there, and you can ask any question. Because the thing about this hobby is, while we go and we share it with you, and I share with you in the course videos, our methods of setting up a show, putting things together, organizing things, etc. Every display still is unique, right? Like it's not a cookie cutter thing. Because every house is different and the types of things, the types of shapes and models and props that you want to put in your display personally are going to be different than me and different than the next guy. It's all unique. And so because of that, while we can teach a lot in the course and really get you going, it's great for people to be able to pop in there in the community forums and just go, hey, here's the stuff I've got. Here's how I was thinking about setting it up. I was thinking about getting these controllers based off what I learned in the video. Does that all make sense? And then we can pop in and be like, hey, you're like 90% of the way there, but we would tweak this, or yeah, that looks great. Or, I think I would do it this way rather than what you're doing. And here's the advantage, even though both could work, etc. So there's the community forums. And then what you might be teeing off to is Academy members can also book one-on-one calls with myself or Brandon, who works with us, who help people one-to-one with their displays. So you want, for some people, it's just a learning style thing, right? Rather than sitting in front of a video, you'd rather just sit down with an expert one-on-one over Zoom and just look at your stuff, get the direct advice right there. And so that's a great option as well. Same for, when we get into the season, people are starting to set up. Sometimes people run into problems. They're not sure how to solve them. And, they just want a quick answer. Hopping on one of those calls is a great way to do that.
Yes, you're the only person in the industry that offers that one-on-one phone call, which is just brilliant. So for me, I learn visually. So if I'm going to, I learn visually and I learn hands-on. If you're just going to talk to me about it and there's nothing visual, nothing for me to get my hands on, I'm not going to retain that knowledge. So for someone can, like I said, through Zoom, you can look at it and you are so educated in the hobby, you can look at it and say, oh, that's that controller. You just have to do this or do that, and you'll fix your problem. Jump around real quick here. So Haas from the
Okay.
comments.
Oh.
It says, can pixels be used to display a logo, say like during a homecoming week?
Absolutely, they can. So when we talk about pixels, the possibilities are kind of endless. So obviously, there are going to be kind of the obvious shapes like, snowflakes and trees and things like that. And those ones generally, some of these props are going to be able to, do some other things besides just their initial shape. Like some of these new higher density props that some of the companies have, it can be like this really ornate wreath, but then you can put like Halloween symbols on it. But for what you're kind of talking about is, and the question already went away, and so, well, I don't know who
Well,
asked it,
I'll pull it back up.
but yeah,
Boom, right there for you.
off kilter. So it's okay. We don't have a name, but that's totally cool. And so what you're probably talking about is more of what we call a matrix, which is just a big old grid of pixels, right? And depending on how far people are from the matrix, they might be 1 inch apart, they might be 2 inches apart, etc. And when you have a matrix, yeah, you can totally display images, videos, etc., as desired.
Now, Scott Dree says he's a subscriber to your channel, loves your videos, do a great job explaining things. I agree. Eddie says you do great work, David, loves your channel. Let's see here. I know I saw a question. Dylan, who hails from South Africa, I believe, says, where can one purchase your subscription?
Awesome. So yeah, let's grab you a link. But basically, if we go to oh gosh, putting me on the spot, we
Oh, no
usually
worries. Take your time.
Christmas lighting. So learn christmaslightingacademy.com, and that should, let's see. Oh, but I'm logged in. That should take us to a page for where we have the ability right now, just that you can start, I believe, for $1. Yeah. And so I will put a direct link to that page. We usually email it out to people in our emails, but I'm popping it. Maybe I'm not
Yes.
popping it in the chat. How do I put it in the chat, Charlie? I can. Oh, here we go.
Well,
Oh, I
there's
go to
just for
private.
me, I just look on my page, I just put it down on the chat on the bottom right of our screen.
Yeah,
But
it
what I
says.
can also do here
Yeah, I sent it
is,
to you. Sorry, but it's a direct link to $1 to check it out for 14
oh,
days.
in private chat.
Yeah,
Okay, I got you. Yep,
yeah,
copy and paste it right now.
yeah. It says that I need to connect to my YouTube, and so I don't want
Oh,
to
you're
make
good. I got
anything
you.
further.
Boom, right there in the
Cool.
comments is the link, guys. You can copy paste that, or if you're watching this later on, you're not in the live chat, you should be able to just click on that as a URL link.
Awesome. Yeah. And so that allows you to check that out. We love doing this trial because then you can just hop on in, check it out, check out the courses for 2 weeks. It's not enough time to go through everything, but you can
It's
decide
not.
if it really fits your style of learning or not, And it's a great option for people.
See here. Linda asks, I want to find some quality, affordable, permanent lights to install myself. Any ideas?
Yeah, my go-to is I really like the Matos design stuff personally. And that's who we've kind of partnered with in ways, though it's not always official. We stock like they're like regular pixels, but for the permanent stuff, just go to them directly, because Matos Designs and Wally's Lights is another favorite of mine. Wired Watts is another one, but I don't think they have any permanent stuff right now. They did a few years ago and they kind of phased it out. But I would stick with those guys. They're some of the best high quality lights out on the market, but that aren't like not so expensive. Because as we probably all know, is so Matos Designs, Mattos Designs, Wally's Lights. That's Wally, like the name. Are two really great ones that I recommend, and neither of them pay me or anything. They're both good companies with great people behind them, and so those are the ones that really like when you compare those, especially to like some of these brands like Trimlight, that I mean, they're a contractor that comes in and does it for you, but they're very expensive. And these guys are just considerably much more hobby friendly in terms of price and really great quality. I've had the Matos Designs ones on my house now for over a year, no problems at all. Lots of customers of ours have used those as well, and they're just awesome.
Kenny Cash asks, and this is a great segue into our next question. I don't have a display show yet, so I'm not going to enter this time. I just can't decide if I want to put that kind of time in. So for someone like Kenny who is trying to decide, do I want pixel lights? Do I want AC lights? What are the pros and cons for kind of a synopsis? What should one weigh there when they're deciding what type of show to do?
Well, I would say, I mean, when you look at Christmas light shows, and I drive around and check all of them out, and hopefully this doesn't offend you, Charlie, but pixel lights are way cooler.
You're not wrong. If I had to do all over again, I'd 100% do pixel lights. Not even close.
They're way cooler, and to tell you the truth as well, like maybe you wait another year, but like every year there's so much innovation in the animated pixel light show space that the shows keep getting easier and easier to do, which is so cool. Like Christmas Expo is one of the big trade shows, just happened last week, no, 2 weeks ago. I couldn't make it out there, but I checked out all the stuff, and there were some really great innovations. Some things from most of the controller manufacturers to make it easier to set up and work with their controllers, and things like Matos Designs, again, friends of ours, but they introduced a new style of pixel that, from everything I've heard, I haven't gotten a sample yet, it's way just easier, less painful on your fingers to insert them into the props, more reliable, and even a little bit lower cost.
Is there, side question, I heard rumors years ago that they were thinking about coming out with a 24 volt pixel. So you got your 5 volt, your 12 volt. Is there any truth to that?
Oh, I mean, it'll happen at some point.
Okay.
It definitely will. I see the industry going there. It's just not there yet in the non-commercial space, right? Like in the commercial world, there's 24 volt pixels. They exist. They haven't made it down to the hobbyist level yet.
See, Haas says, do you know if a company that blends siding with pixels? I'm thinking of doing new siding, but 2 birds with 1 stone would be awesome. You're not wrong. I've never heard of that. You?
Well, in a sense, no, but yes, right? So companies like Matos Designs and their RGB trim, and the other brands have, the other sites have similar things. They give you the lights, they sell you the lights, and it comes with a metal track. Okay. And you've probably seen this. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. If not, just look it up. We've got a video on YouTube about installing ours, and they'll typically let you, most of the brands will have it like in black and white. The white trim typically is paintable. So like it can blend in, like the trim is really nice, and it looks like it's meant to belong on a house. You don't see any wires or anything. You just see the lights kind of poking out of this trim. And then, being that most of it is paintable, even if you just take the white trim and you scuff it up a little and then you paint it with whatever color your house is, all of a sudden it's blended right in.
I would like to make note that Haas has just offered to buy me a pixel light show. So that is now a contractual obligation Haas has. Says if he wins a lottery, he's buying me all my lights.
Oh, well, he's got to win the lottery first.
That's true, but I have faith in him. So I'll see, what's the price point a first timer should expect to pay for a very first show. So what's a good number? Like, hey, I want a pixel light show. I'm going to take the time to educate myself to have a good quality first show. I need X amount of dollars. What number would you plug in there, do you think?
Exactly. So that is a hard thing to nail down, but here I'm going to do my best to nail it down simple for everyone, right? And the caveats there are that, I mean, the first obvious one is everybody's house and their frontage, basically, which side of the house goes forward. Like the amount of space that everybody's trying to cover is completely different, right? Like my old house, the short side was toward the road, and so it didn't take a ton of lights to fill it up. At my current house where we moved last year, the long side faces the road. And so it's like 3 times the square footage, right? In terms of the front of the house, even though the house isn't that much bigger. It's turned the other way. And so that's the first thing, is like, you got to think about, okay, how much are you trying to fill? How much are you trying to cover? Then it's kind of about estimating. Like I tell people, start to look at, okay, if I were to line all my gutters, line the vertical lines of my house, the obvious columns, whatever else, do the roof line, line that out. How many feet is that? Right? Like how long is that? And then figure out, okay, if I do that at a 2 or 3 inch spacing, about how many lights is that? Right. So if there's a light every 2 or 3 inches, that means if you do a 3 inch spacing, or let's just do a 2 inch spacing, there's 6 lights per foot. You've got, 300 feet, let's say, to cover, just to start with the basics. So then you say, okay, 300 feet, 6 lights per foot, and that's about 1,800 lights, right? At which point, we use the number of about $1 per pixel for a finished show. Okay. That's rough, but it gets you in the right direction. Is to say, okay, for every single pixel that you have, every one of these little lights, and yes, it depends. And yes, people do it for cheaper than $1. And yes, people do it for more than $1. But that's a good starting point to say, hey, for, my pixels themselves, the props I stick them in, the controllers, the wires, all in, it typically looks around $1 a pixel.
Okay, so that's a good question. So, see, Dylan here asks, does one need a whole complex controller setup to run a matrix, or is there a more budget-friendly option, or using microcontrollers like, I don't know how to pronounce that word, so I shall not try. So that kind of ties into that question for budget.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Absolutely. So an Arduino basically is a small, inexpensive microcomputer. Now, I'm right there with you, Charlie, and I'm not enough of like a computer programmer type guy to be able to understand how to like throw the code into those things and make them control pixels. I know those microcomputers are like $10, but I I don't know how I've never been able to figure them out or had the desire to. That being said, even on the controller market, I do love that idea of getting started small for people, because it's like, hey, just for a starter show, maybe you've got the lights you've been putting on your house the last few years, maybe you put some icicles and you hang some garlands, and you got all that stuff, right? That you've been hanging for years. You know, go put that go put that stuff on your house, and then just get a handful of pixel stuff. Get yourself some snowflakes or like a small couple little mini trees or something, and animate them, not even necessarily to music, just have them animating. And if you do that your first year, even just a few hundred pixels, it's like now you take the time to kind of learn all of the pieces, kind of wrap your head around it, see the finished result. And then if you go to add more stuff, it's like, okay, you know, now it's much easier to wrap your head around what you need, how it works, etc. So even on the small end of controllers, like I just pulled up one of the controller vendor Culp lights, KULP, and they have, like, for example, their K4. It's a small 4-port pixel controller. And if I look at one of these, which is like the controller board with the little microcomputer on it and an SD card with the software pre-installed to run light shows, and you add all that up, and it's $45, right? So you can get started with an inexpensive controller. It doesn't have to be, dropping $300 on a full controller. Small ones can work great, and it's like, and I love that route, and I recommend it because it's like, hey, get everything going, get the stuff you need to just do a couple small props, and now you're going to learn all of the steps, right? You're going to learn how to set up the controller, how to set up the lights, how to program them, how to upload it, how to connect to it with your computer, and you learn all of the pieces. And then, like, as I found, like, and I find this too when I work with people in the commercial space who set up millions of pixels, like, scaling up to a larger show from something small is actually not very difficult. It's kind of just doing more of the same thing. Like, it doesn't really change.
That's one thing I like about the Pixel Light show that I envy is, like, you could start out small, but you could just grow and grow and grow. And then, I may have 100,000 AC lights, but 1,800 Pixel Light show is going to kick my butt as far as I think of Pixel Lights as a legitimate light show. That's
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Like, it takes a lot more AC lights to kind of give the same impression as a lot less pixel lights.
One thing I say when people say, should I do AC or pixel light shows? I'm like, well, you can't really program Metallica songs to AC light shows. So maybe think about pixels.
Yeah.
Haas here, and you kind of touched upon this. You have a good video about can I have a light show in an HOA? So this, for me, this kind of an HOA type of question. He lives in a small town with narrow streets, neighbors directly across the street. Should I go with a lower voltage light to keep the peace? He just want to go have a Griswold and Lane situation.
Right. Well, nobody wants that, right? It's not really lower voltage isn't really the right term. I think you just want to be careful with how flashy you are. Uh, and same with the pixels, they're 12 volt or 5 volt. Which one you go with doesn't really, it doesn't, the brightness doesn't change. Um, and so it's not really about voltage, but with a pixel light show in the controller, you can turn it down. And a lot of people do. In fact, I run most of my lights pretty low, like 30% or less. But in terms of the neighbors directly across and stuff, a lot of times, honestly, just limiting the hours that your show runs. Maybe some people do only weekends, and even for the weekends you do, they might cap it off at 9, right, or 10, right, and not go till 11 p.m. so that people aren't coming by at those times. And so obviously, it's winter, so 6 p.m. it's dark, right, in most places, which is the beautiful thing. And so I think more so than being like, oh, less brightness, etc., it's more like, okay, you know don't run them at full, keep the brightness down. But it's really more about going, okay, should I not do weeknights, or maybe not do the middle of the week or something, so there aren't cars coming by? And then, maybe just do the weekends, but don't go late with it. And I think that's going to be better for the neighbors. In terms of HOAs and neighbors and people getting into fights over light shows, it happens less often than you think it would. A lot of people
Right.
get concerned about it, and then they find out that really everybody just loves it, and it's rare that there's problems. It does
So,
happen. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen,
yeah.
but it's pretty rare.
One thing I think, well, first of all, anyone who's in this hobby knows that this hobby is an addictive hobby. We always want to add something new and cool every year. And one thing that you started, was it 2 years ago, I think, you started as a vendor. So you now sell the hardware, and you get into DMX, digital multiplexing, which is, your fog machines, your snow machines, your spotlights. What is something cool that people can add to their show in the DMX arena?
Well, what I like to tell people is, with DMX lights, I mean, all of it's cool. It's all of it's fun, right? But the time to start thinking about moving beyond just pixels in your display is when you kind of got your house covered pretty well, right? When a lot of people go and they say, okay, I'm gonna go just cover my house in pixels. I get a few thousand. I kind of cover, my window frames, and I do my roof lines, and I've got some props around. And then when you kind of hit that point where your house is, fairly filled, then going and adding like 1,000 more pixels doesn't actually make that much impact, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
But like, you see some of these pixel shows sometimes where people just like cover like every single surface with pixels, and you go, well, if you had half of that, it like still would be just as impressive, like, right? And so that's when it's fun to start getting into other stuff. And so the DMX lights, like the moving heads, are great because instead of just a pixel that's in one spot, it's something that can point to different areas, right? And can move, physically through the air, which is something that a pixel can't do. Same with the fog and snow machines, and as I love the Fobble machines, the fog bubbles from
Oh,
Froggies and other brands. Um, especially like, I pull out that Fobbles machine for parties in the summer, for Halloween, for Christmas, and it is just like the thing the kids love the most. Like, above everything else, they love the stinking fog bubbles, because they're bubbles, so kids love bubbles. But then this little fog, pops out of them, and it's like magic, right? And so that's one of the cool things, is like, being able to add that in. That being said, fog and fog bubble and snow machines, across all of those, none of them are waterproof. The DMX moving
Oh,
heads and like, the regular par type lights that you can use to like light up trees really well and stuff, those can be waterproof all day long. But for the most part, because a couple fog machines have hit the market in the last year, they're quite pricey that are outdoor rated. Um, but typically your fog machines, your snow machines are not outdoor rated, so you can't just leave them outside all the time, which is it's one of the
oh.
downsides to them for sure.
So what's the best way to incorporate a fog machine or snow machine into a show then? Is
Well,
it you try to weatherproof it yourself, or what's the best way to incorporate that, do you think?
yeah, I would say either, trying to weatherproof it yourself, which can be done, especially if you get something on the more inexpensive end, right? Something that's cheaper.
Mhm.
If you've got some sort of covered area, like a porch that's pretty well covered or something, you could probably cover the machine or somehow stick it inside of a plastic box or something so that it's fairly covered. And then if you're
Gotcha.
if there's a big storm coming, you might want to cover it completely with a trash bag or take it inside, right? And just kind of use common sense there. Not to say that it's I wouldn't leave them out in the direct rain for sure. But other than that, they're
Right.
not outdoor rated, but they'll probably do okay.
Catch up on the comments here a little bit. Doug asks, with so many vendors selling pixels now, how do you choose a reputable one, or should you just order straight from manufacturers from China? Good question, because I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the crux of this argument always, because this argument's been around as long as pixels are around, right? Is that hey, you know, all of these pixels get made in China, right? And in fact, most of us who work with the manufacturers, who work with different vendors and stuff, like we understand that there's only so many kind of pixel, not factories, but people that are kind of in charge of making pixels. And there's only so many factories out there, right? And pretty much all the pixels that we get come from these same factories. So,
Mhm.
for a long time, it's kind of been like, well, if you buy from somebody in the States, you're just paying more for the same stuff, right? If it's potentially coming from the same factory. But that's often not the case. And so, what happens is if you buy direct, there's a couple things that can happen. I'm not going to say it is going to happen, but I'm going to say it can happen. And it does happen from time to time. Is 2020 is actually a great example of this. A lot of people who bought pixels, a lot of pixels on the market, um, ended up having a lot of failures in 2020, which, just put that on top of everything else that happened in 2020, right?
Right.
um, and if you bought direct from the factory, and you had thousands upon thousands, it's like some people had, 10, 20, 30,000 pixels that just, had so many failures that they just ripped them all out and got rid of them, right? If they bought them direct from China, you can go reach out to them, but they're not going to do squat about it for you, right? And they didn't in these situations. Some of the US vendors got affected by it. Some of them discovered it early, some of them didn't until product had gone out to customers. But the thing is, if you bought it from a US vendor, somebody reputable at least, they took care of it. They replaced them. And so, that's a big deal. And the other is just kind of the quality side. Like it's well known both in stage lighting, where I do a lot of work and work in that industry, as well as this, that you can go to a factory that a light is made and ask for the same light. And oftentimes, if you don't set forth, say, I want these certain standards, they're going to go, cheaper, in this case, thinner on the wires between the lights. They might kind of rush through the soldering and not do as good of a job as they would for a vendor that buys a lot. Okay. Or the vendor that buys a lot, the US vendor, is also going to say, hey, these are my quality standards. It must be this wire. It must be this fireproof epoxy inside it. It must be this LED, etc. And they set those standards for the factory. And if you go yourself, you're not going to get something built to those same standards. That's also where I love these Matos Designs pixels. Though other brands are great, like the Wally's Lights ones, your Pixel Store. There's other people that sell good pixels, but Matos Designs went and they changed the color of the circuit board. Why did they change the color of the circuit board? Because they changed the way the circuit boards were cut between them in order to make less failures between them, so that the cuts were cleaner and the soldering is better on them. And so they changed the color so that quickly, as lights come in, they can check, okay, is this my stuff that, they bought, that they specified, or did the factory mess it up? And they can tell right away because they changed the color of the circuit board from anything anybody else does. And so, yeah, going overseas, I really don't recommend, unless you're buying a lot of pixels every year. Like, obviously, in the commercial realm, I know people who do it, but they're people that, buy hundreds of thousands of pixels each year and are building a relationship with those factories and know what to ask for to get the quality stuff, because it's not always simple with the language barriers and stuff.
Makes sense. Kenny asks, do you know of anyone who spent a ton of money on a display only to discover his or her neighbors hated it? Have you ever heard of that?
No, I absolutely have,
Yeah.
honestly. It just, like, I think it's something that everybody fears, and I get that because we moved last year, right? And I was like, "Oh, we've already got like a lot of stuff built up. What are the neighbors gonna think, right?" And they all love it. They think it's great, And so, we really don't hear that from our customers, students, anybody. Like, it really doesn't happen, at all. I mean, it could happen, I suppose, but like, in terms of, like, I feel like every year, like, between all the forums and Facebook groups and everything that are out there for animated lighting, I feel like there's one or two people every year that I see that run into that across like the entire hobby. It just doesn't happen that much, unless you have a neighbor across the street that is just a grumpy person, and they're going to be apt to hate something like that. Like, if you have that person living across the street already, you probably already know it because they've already probably told you cut your grass wrong, or or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, ultimately, there's going to be some people that are offended at almost anything, right? But as long as you don't have those people as neighbors, you're going to be fine, honestly. The other thing, though, that just to watch out for is sometimes people build their displays and they start to build them really big, and they get a lot of traffic. And if you start to get that, then your neighbors may not like you, not because of the display, but because of the traffic, right? But that's like a whole different scale. And honestly, like I would say not to worry about that, because, like, one, there's more people doing animated light shows than ever before, every
Yeah.
year, right? The amount of houses that are doing it, the amount, even if you're in a city where there's not a lot of people that do it, there's a couple more that do it every year. And so it means that the one house that is the really epic display doesn't get like all the attention, right? And all the traffic. If you truly did build your show up to the point where you had significant traffic problems, because this has happened to some of the bigger folks in our space, they'll either only do the light show for, have it on for just a few nights, and kind of close off the street, work with the police and stuff. Or they go and they find like a local college or somebody who's happy to host the show like on their campus, and they just move it to something that's not residential, some kind of nonprofit or college or something that, is not really business, not really residential, often works really well. But honestly, like, it's a long, long way before you get to that point. And like, even just being like in Nashville, Tennessee, where I am, like, I don't foresee that ever happening. Like, we have a pretty cool show. I think a lot of people think so too. They say so, but there's some other cool shows in town too. And so, like, we don't get all the attention, and it's less of a concern than I think people think it is sometimes.
So I'm going to do a video next week with my wife. I'm going to interview my wife from a spouse's perspective. I'm going to ask her 5 questions about what does a spouse need to know for their spouse to get into space, and traffic is going to be one of the questions. She sometimes she needs to go to the grocery store. Sometimes she can't go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
So Rob asks, if you have a display like him with 300 blow molds and 30,000 lights, what's the best pixel prop to start with to add to the display? It's a good question. What's your favorite pixel prop? Is it the snowflakes? What?
I always think that, honestly, starting with pixels, I like to cover with just like covering the most physical spaces possible. So for that, I like to do roof lines. Roof lines, and like
Yes.
putting pixels on like your columns or your windows. Like, I like that because then it's like you can kind of have them reaching across your whole house, kind of covering every segment, even if it's not real dense. And I think that makes the best first and biggest first impression.
My favorite pixel prop to see is the mega tree. And for folks who don't know, David is the only person in the industry who has a A to Z entire YouTube show, a video dedicated to building a pixel tree through a kit. I highly recommend you watch that. He's got a timeline on there. So if you have a specific question about building a tree, you can look at that as well. But that's my favorite thing to see because depending on how close the pixels are, you can make that to basically an LED screen, like a TV screen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Creative Displays up in Kansas City area, they sell a pixel tree. They have the Grinch programmed into it, and that's just a kit you can buy from them. But yeah, I love pixels for so many different reasons, but the Mega Tree is my favorite prop. Dylan asked, does anyone know anything about something range snow machines? I don't know. I'm guessing that's a brand. Beams range. Have you ever heard of that brand before?
Beams is a brand of cheaper snow machines. So let's see. I'm just gonna Google it because that's what we do, right?
There you go.
The Beams Rage 1000. Okay, the Beams Rage RAGE. That's what came up when I Googled it. So I think that's what he's talking about. And so I'm just gonna look at it here quick. So that would be a non-DMX snow machine, meaning it just has like remotes with it, right? It's on the cheaper end, and it looks like.
And for the folks that don't know DMX, we can put it into our control panel and we can control that when it comes on and off. Whereas if it just has a remote, you can't control it for a specific time.
Yeah, exactly. And that being said, this one looks like the remote's like directly hardwired to it. There is a device called the Pix 2 Fog. Oh, Pixel Fog machine. I know I've got a video about it. The Pix Fog, sorry, the PIXFOG, Pix Fog, which is a little circuit board that does let you use cheaper like smoke and snow machines and fog machines with pixels, even if they don't have DMX. And that one works if they have the little 5-pin remote port on the machines. It typically works with those. And it's like a little $30 circuit board. I've got one and they work. It doesn't look like with that Beams snow machine that would work, but there's other cheaper ones on the market that it should work with.
And that question is awesome because that segues perfectly into my next question. So one thing in your academy offers is forums. Can you give us an example? Because that's exactly something you would ask in the forums. Hey, does anybody know anything about this machine? And you get an instant response. So can you give us an example how forums have helped people in that kind of situation?
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, like you said, it's like a lot of times, like obviously through the courses and whatnot, we make recommendations of like, hey, this is the stuff that's cost effective that we found is the easiest to work with in your display, for brands and controller types and whatnot. But a lot of times people come and join us and they've already bought stuff. They've already got stuff that they're trying to make work. They can't make it work. And then they join the academy, right, for that help. And so the forums are great because exactly, it's like, hey, I have this branded controller that you don't talk about in the videos. What do I need to do to make it work? Or people say, hey, I've been thinking about, doing, whether I want to do, my porch columns with some little matrices of lights, or whether I want to add some snowflakes. Can anybody, tell me which they would choose and why? So it's just a really great place for people to be able to bounce ideas off each other and go, both on the like technical side of like, hey, I have this problem or I'm trying to figure this out. And just on the artistic side, like, hey, I want to add some stuff to my show. I'm kind of torn between these two things. What does the community think? And it's a great place to do so.
So for folks who got here late to the chat, make sure you put in #summer into the comments. That's going to be your entry into a giveaway, which David announced earlier today, a 1-year free membership into his Learn Christmas Lighting Academy, which if memory serves is worth a lot of money. So I appreciate David doing that today. So David, you have the YouTube channel, you have different social media platforms. You're a vendor. Where can everybody find everything at? Is it Learn Christmas Lighting Academy? Where do they need to go?
Exactly. LearnChristmasLighting.com is kind of the central hub for everything. Being that on the menu, you can get over to the store, check out our DMX lights, check out the Matos Designs pixels that we sell. There's also a link to the Academy area. So for the members, you can click over there. you can sign up for our free guide right on the homepage, which is the 4 things I really, really wish I knew before I began with Christmas lighting. And it just helps you kind of get started, get that ball rolling for you on your first Christmas light show as well. And then, when you email, just like we sent you the link here today, we'll tell you about that $1 trial, the ability to start, check out the Academy for just $1 and see if it's fitting for you or not. So learnchristmaslighting.com is all the things.
I put that into the chat again, and also this video's description are David's YouTube channel and Academy link, and I think I got Facebook in there.
Awesome.
Are you on Instagram or anything else?
No, we don't do that.
Okay. I have an Instagram. I don't do a ton with it, but
yeah.
I own one. I had a lady today email me some questions on that today, or I guess it's not emailed. It's whatever the kids. I don't know. I've got to that stage where I'm old enough. I have to ask my kids to translate. Yeah. So we're going to sign off here in the next few minutes. So does because I'm out of questions for David. David answered it.
Did we answer them all? Okay, good.
I do have one question for you for my own show. I'm thinking about adding a snow machine today. Yep. What is a snow machine, or I believe one exists. What is a snow machine that either has a great brand name, kind of like LG is great for TVs, and combined with something I can add liquid to like once every 3 days, and I don't have to do something once every 2 hours. Does that type of machine exist?
So the thing about snow machines is they're all like they definitely vary in reliability, but there's only one technology of snow machine that really exists, like in terms of this artificial snow, right? And as you probably know, it's basically a bubble fluid that comes out of the nozzle, and there's a little sock on the end of the nozzle. You probably see that, a little black sock looking thing on the end of those snow machines that basically causes the bubble fluid to come through and clump. And then when it clumps, that's what makes the snowflakes that it blows out into the air and they shoot out. So any snow machine, if you run it often, is going to go through a lot of fluid. That's just kind of par for the course. That being said, it is worth considering, and we are, able to get this. There's a lot of brands, snow machines, a lot of good ones. A lot of times we like the Froggies brand, we like the Magmatic brand. Even the 80J ones are great. But we have a fluid from Magmatic that we sell on our site that is a concentrated snow fluid. Okay. So it's a just add water kind of thing, right? And the great thing about a concentrate, of course, is, here we are, 2023, even right now, shipping rates, though they've been higher before, and, maybe super high again in a few weeks, they're not at the highest they've been, but it's expensive to ship things, right? And so things like snow fluid get real expensive to ship, right? Like we had somebody buy, a 55-gallon drum of snow fluid the other week, but it costs $500 to ship those couple 55-gallon drums, right? And so, that gets expensive. So we do have a concentrate available at our store from Magmatic that allows you to get, a just add water. And so you're buying a small bottle and it makes a much larger container if you, stick it into something and fill it with water.
I like concentrates, and a 55-gallon drum, that'd be awesome. I don't know if I might have to make the drive rather than paying the $500, but very cool.
Yeah, that's in the commercial Christmas space, sometimes that's what people need for some of these big setups.
Oh yeah. See, Doug here asks, I started learning pixels using Ladorama. Is there any other controller that will work with Ladorama, or should I change over to a better brand for pixels?
No, absolutely. So your Lightorama controllers can still work in X-Lights if you want to use X-Lights to run your show. You don't have to throw them out by any means. They can still totally work depending on which controller you have. There's different ways that they might interface with an X-Light system, but it's really not that difficult. So the Lightorama stuff is not locked down to just that software. Because a lot of times, people start really getting into pixels and they find Lightorama's often not the best fit if you're doing mostly pixels. And so, but the hardware itself, no, you can totally use that. There's nothing like proprietary about it, etc. And I know he threw the name in there. I'm just going to double check. I believe the Pixie 16 is.
I've never heard of the Pixie 16. Interesting. All sorts of neat names that these things have. You always, I'm always curious about different names that these devices have. But the Pixie 16, I guess that makes sense because it's pixels. It's a play on words on pixels. That's very cool. Put in a hashtag summer. If you have not yet, make sure you're entered into the giveaway. We're going to do a giveaway for a year subscription to David. Oh,
Hey,
there he is.
there I'm back.
Boom,
Yeah,
there he
that
is.
was fun. Like my
So
whole,
that's okay. I got you. I got you. I got
I
you filled.
opened
We're
that
good.
web
We're
page and the
good.
browser just crashed. It was great. So the Pixie 16, it looks like, let me see here. I believe it's a DMX based controller. So basically, there's a lot of ways to interface with DMX based stuff in X Lights, and it can totally work within X Lights.
Very cool. So, David, with your permission, I'm going to go ahead and give away this year free membership, if that's okay with you.
Oh, you already got my permission. You're good.
All right. So, if you have not put in hashtag summer, put in hashtag summer. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to do this big giveaway real quick. We giveaway tool, share that. All right. So, put in hashtag summer. I'm going to collect some comments here. Now, I know there's more than 7 because we've had a lot more in here. So, put in hashtag summer. Although I like Kenny and there's some others that just don't want to be entered. There's Scott coming in late in the
Oh, cool.
game.
That's fancy. So it does it for you, huh? It's tallied it up. Woo.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Does it? So we'll give it about another 10 seconds here. Put in hashtag summer. So again, for those that don't know, put it in the link. It's also in the video's description. Go to Learn Christmas Lighting Academy. Join, and you could talk to people who are much smarter than I am on there. So let's go ahead and give this bad boy away. Let's draw and see who's going to get the 1 year free membership. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? It's going to be
Bum, 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 bum.
Doug, you won the free membership. Congratulations, Doug. That's awesome. Proud of you, Doug. If I could stop sharing that, boom.
All right, and Doug, cool. Charlie will just get your email and connect us up, and we'll send you that either now or Monday, one of the two, if you're not quick. Oh, my last tip for snow machines. This is really important. Okay, so if you do buy a snow machine, anybody, you do need to pull it out at least in the summer, at least halfway around the year, and just run it for a few minutes. Okay, because the fluid inside will solidify if it just sits there for 11 months, and it will clog your machine. And so that's a snow machine thing. It's really good practice for any atmosphere machine, fog, snow, haze, whatever, is just pull it out, a couple times a year and just run it. Just let it run for 5-10 minutes, throw some snow on the ground and then put it back away. And that will help its reliability greatly.
What's a good price point for a commercial grade snow machine or fog machine or bubble machine? Is it 1,000? Is it 2,000? Is it 4,000?
No. I mean, a lot of it depends on how much output you're trying to get, right? Like how much snow does it blow? But for a lot of things in the home or even the smaller commercial space, I mean, we're talking $500 machines, right? More so.
Okay.
Like for a small machine that can push out some good snow or some good fog, 500 or less often can get you something really nice.
Oh, wow. Very cool. I thought it was be a triple that actually.
No, I mean, we have some that are triple that, and they put out a whole lot of snow, but usually for the home user, you really don't need that. The other thing with the big snow machines is they're quieter than the small snow machines, but I don't think that's really a huge concern with the home stuff. It just sounds like a fan.
Gotcha.
It's not that bad.
So, Doug, congratulations. Email me, christmasoncrestline@gmail.com, and we will get you hooked up with David in that 1 year free membership. And Doug, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot, and it's going to be awesome. David, thanks so much for coming on the show again this year. That's awesome of you. I appreciate you supporting the show and us band of Christmas Light brothers.
That we are. Thank you so much, Charlie, for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm going to do my big outro. Then I'll talk to you here in a second, David. On the other side, I'm Charlie. That's David. We'll see you in the next video. Congratulations, David. We'll be back Monday with a live interview with Jordan from Crew Elite. We'll see you guys.